You're on.
Hey, good morning, Bobcat Nation. It's me, Dr. Morales, your assistant principal. Well, I'm joining you guys today to read a very nice story, Charlotte's Web. I picked this story, it's one of my favorites. I think it's fun. It's a good story. You know, if you're younger, you can just listen to the story and can talk about certain things. And if you're older, there's some really good things that I think are important right now. So let's go ahead and get started. Charlotte's Web, Chapter 1, Before Breakfast. "Where's that papa going with that axe?" said Fern and her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. "Out to the hog house," replied Miss Arable. "Some pigs were born last night." "I don't see why he needs an axe," continued Fern, who was only 8. "Well," said her mother, "one of the pigs is a rut. It's very small and weak, and it will never amount to anything. So your father had decided to go away with it." "Go away with it?" shrieked Fern. "You mean kill it? Just because it's smaller than the others?" Miss Arable put a pitcher of cream on the table. "Don't yell, Fern," she said. "Your father is right. The pig would probably die anyway." Fern pushed a chair out on the way and ran outdoors. The grass was wet and the earth smelled of springtime. Fern's sneakers was sopping by the time she caught up with her father. "Please don't kill it," she sobbed. "It's unfair." Mr. Arable stopped walking. "Fern," he said gently, "you'll have to learn to control yourself." "Control myself," yelled Fern. "This is a matter of life and death, and you talk about controlling myself?" Tears ran down her cheeks as she took hold of the axe and tried to pull it away from her father's hand. "Fern," said Mr. Arable, "I know more about raising a litter of pigs than you do. A weakling makes trouble. Now run along." "But it's unfair," cried Fern. "The pig couldn't help being born small, could it? If I had been small at birth, would you have killed me?" Mr. Arable smiled. "Certainly not," he said, looking down at his daughter with love. "But this is different. A little girl is one thing, a little runty pig is another." "I see no difference," replied Fern, just still hanging onto the axe. "This is the most terrible case of injustice I have ever heard of." A queer look came over John Arable's face. He seemed almost ready to cry himself. "All right," he said. "You go back to the house, and I will bring the runt when I come in. I'd let you start it on a bottle like a baby. Then you'll see what trouble a pig can be." When Mr. Arable returned to the house half an hour later, he continued a carton under his arm. Fern was upstairs changing her sneakers. The kitchen table was set for breakfast, and the room smelled of coffee, bacon, damp plaster, wood smoke from the stove. "Put it on the chair," said Mrs. Arable. Mr. Arable set the carton down at Fern's place. Then he walked to the sink and washed his hands and dried them on the roller towel. Fern came slowly down the stairs. Her eyes were red from crying. As she approached her chair, the carton wobbled and there was a shrieking noise. Fern looked at her father. Then she lifted the lid of the carton. There, inside, looking up at her, was the newborn pig. It was a white one. The morning light shone through its ears, turning them pink. "He's yours," said Mr. Arable, "saved from the untimely death. And may the good Lord forgive me for this foolishness." Fern couldn't take her eyes off that tiny pig. "Oh," she whispered, "oh, look at him. He's absolutely perfect." She closed the carton carefully. First she kissed her father and then kissed her mother. Then she opened the lid again, lifted the pig out, and held it against her cheek. At this moment, her brother Avery came into the room. Avery was 10. He was heavily armed, an air rifle in one hand, a wooden dagger in the other. "What's that?" he demanded. "What's Fern got?" "She got a guest for breakfast," said Mrs. Arable. "Wash your hands and face, Avery." "Let's see it," said Avery, setting his gun down. "You call that miserable thing a pig? That's a fine specimen of a pig, no bigger than a white rat." "Wash up and eat your breakfast, Avery," said his mother. "The school bus will be coming along in half an hour." "Can I have a pig too, Pop?" asked Avery. "No, I only distribute pigs to early risers," said Mr. Arable. Fern was up at daylight trying to get rid of the world of injustice. As a result, she now has a pig. A small one, to be sure, but nevertheless a pig. It just shows you what can happen if a person gets out of bed promptly. Let's see. But Fern couldn't eat until her pig had a drink of milk. Mrs. Arable found a baby nursing bottle and a rubber nipple. She poured warm milk into the bottle, fitted the nipple over the top. She handed it to Fern. "Give him his breakfast," she said. A minute later, Fern was seated at the floor of the corner of the kitchen, with her infant between her knees, reaching it to suck on the bottle. The pig, although tiny, had a good appetite and caught on quickly. The schoolbook honked from the road. "Run!" commanded Mrs. Arable, taking the pig from Fern. Slipping a donut into her hand, Avery grabbed his gun and another donut. The children ran out to the road, climbed into the bus. Fern took no notice of the others in the bus. She just sat and stared out of the window, thinking what a blissful world it was, and how lucky she was to have an entire charge of a pig. By the time the bus reached school, Fern had named her pig, selecting the most beautiful name she could think of. Its name was Wilbur. She whispered to herself. She was still thinking about the pig when the teacher said, "Fern, what is the capital of Pennsylvania?" "Wilbur," replied Fern dreamily. The pupils giggled. Fern blushed. And that is the end of chapter 1 of Charlotte's Web. So there's a good quote, and for those younger kids, I want you to think about the setting. Where do you think this story takes place? Is it in the city? Is it in the farm? Right? When does it take place? So those are some of the things I want you guys to be thinking about it. And for you older kids, there's a quote I kind of want to read again. When the dad was about to kill the pig, who was a runt, and that was common practice back then because they don't want the pig to consume resources. And so the Fern says to the dad, "This is the most terrible case of injustice I've ever heard of." What do you think Fern means by that? I want you to take some time, reflect on that, and you can leave some comments. So tomorrow in chapter 2, I'll look at those comments and we can kind of discuss those before we get into it. And that is it, Bobcat Nation. We miss you. We look forward to having you guys back. We really miss the assemblies, the kids playing outside, the learning that goes on here. We will see you soon. Be safe. Be responsible. Mr. Mitchell, what's the last one?
Be respectful.
Be respectful. That's our PBIS slogan. Great job. All right, family. We will see you soon. Take care and stay safe.
Woohoo!